so I'm not going to spoil it. But if you like sort of queer themes and themes of self-discovery and what identity even means, this is your book. If you like unique fantasy settings with fleshed out worlds, get this book. Give me 1 second. Okay. Today has been the day of distractions, I swear. Okay. That's always me. But if you like cool, interesting fantasy, like I said, this is for you. I would also say, generally, if you're a literature fan, like things that are interestingly written, things that have cool structure, things that play with, like, conventions, this is your thing. So, instead of telling you the whole story, I am going to give you a summary of the first little bit. So, because it is implied on the back of the book that these things will happen. So, essentially, we're introduced to the world of the old country through the stories of Your Lola. It is told in the second person. And essentially, it's like, the best way that I could put it, it is you are watching this play in a dream theater of ancestral memories. Because at some point, you figure out that you're a descendant of a character. And it's kind of foreshadowed, so I think that's not that bad, and it's not like a huge reveal, it just kind of adds an extra dimension to things. But then we're introduced to the world of the old country. This country is never really given a name, but it is ruled over by the 8th Emperor and the 8th Emperor's 3 sons, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd terrors. And the mother of the emperor, and then also his sons. There's a bit of that in this book. Not explicit, and it's not disgusting, mostly because it is implied that her being divine is kind of exempts her from things like that. But essentially, this goddess, who is the mother of the emperor, and then also the 3 sons, is fed up because she's being kept essentially in prison, and her sort of immense power keeps her alive. It sustains her, but it can't forever, or else she becomes like completely passive, basically. But she is fed up with being held captive, and she's also fed up with the way that the emperors have ruled the country. So she decides to kill him, and she uses one of the emperor's grandsons, Jun, who is the son of the 1st terror, who is tasked with guarding her door. She sort of worms her way into his head to convince him to do this. It really explores power dynamics and the fallibility of the powerful, I would say. And so she is escaping with Jun, and Jun eventually, just by accident really, meets up with a warrior named Kima, who is of a certain tribe, although, get ready for that. That is like one of my favorite reveals. He is a perpetual loner. He is one-armed. He has been in battle. He has been had one of his arms cut off, and he is sort of moving through the world as somebody who is the target of prejudice because of this, and he ends up joining up with Jun and the goddess in their journey, and just like helping them get to where they need to go. And the way that the relationship develops between the 2 men, Jun and Kima, the way that Kima develops as a character, the way that the goddess is revealed as a character, and just the world is so gorgeous. I would would say buy this. Buy this. It shouldn't be terribly expensive, but it definitely is now probably my favorite book of all time. I would say pretty confidently. Pretty confidently. So, the next, we're pivoting to sci-fi. This is To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. Yes, that is a quote from the UN General Secretary. I think that's Kofi Annan, right? Let's see. Can I to be taught if fortunate, to be taught if fortunate? I think there is suborbital acknowledgements. Yes, sorry. It is former UN Secretary General Kurt Waldheim, as recorded on the Voyager Golden Record, as the Secretary General of the United Nations, an organization of 147 member states, in 1977, who represent almost all of the human inhabitants of the planet Earth. I send greetings on behalf of the people of our planet. We step out of our solar system and into the universe seeking only peace and friendship, to teach if we are called upon, to be taught if fortunate. We know full well that our planet and all its inhabitants are but a small part of this immense universe that surrounds us, and it is with humility and hope that we take this step. So that's what this is based on. This book is set in sort of a, if you're not familiar with science fiction, the sort of concept of high fantasy or high science fiction is sort of like, really like high concept, high minded. There's a lot of changes, there's a lot going on. It's not really grounded in a lot of reality, although a lot of hard science fiction is sort of attempts to be grounded in reality. I would call like pinnacle of high science fiction to be like Star Wars, where it's really not a lot of the science is taken into consideration, which is totally fine. I don't judge based on that. I love high science fiction, but low science fiction is a little bit more grounded. There's a lot more consideration given to the science of things and sort of how things would work. And Becky Chambers writes a lot of it. Becky Chambers, I would say, even fits into the category of speculative fiction, science fiction. A lot of her work does stray into the realm of, like, I would assume centuries into the future. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the book that I'm reading right now, a record of a spaceborne view, I wouldn't be surprised if that would take place in like the Earth sort of Gregorian year, 2400 or something like that. That seems reasonable. But this book takes place in the near future, where sort of the Earth has changed quite a bit geopolitically, but this entire book is detailing the scientific expedition of a group of people sent to a different star and different planets to explore, catalog things, and see if there's life or anything like that out there. And this book is so gorgeously written. There is a lot of negative space in this book. There is a lot of just like pausing to take in the scenery, kind of, which I think is so cool because it is truly alien scenery. Becky Chambers did a lot of work in biology and speculative biology, if that's even a field, to get this book to be as realistic feeling as it is. Essentially, the group, the expedition that's being followed is a group of people who has been sent essentially by a citizen scientist organization, a citizen science organization, to different stars to, like I said, catalog, explore, all that kind of thing. And the Earth is sort of in its own sort of thing. We're really separated from that. We never find out what happens to Earth. I would be interested to know if a small angry planet. And then what is that one called? The Galaxy and the Ground Within. I would be interested to know if this is like sort of the first book in the timeline, if you will. But basically, they're visiting these 4 planets to catalog life on Earth, on those planets, I should say, to send back to Earth, to bring back to Earth. And they use, like, gene therapy and such interesting ways to survive on these planets and to survive long interstellar journeys. They are frozen in cryogenic freezing, and they basically just go around and explore, and it's super fun. It's super fun to imagine yourself in that headspace and to imagine where humanity could be in the next couple of sort of decades, or the next 5 decades, or something like that. And then sort of the ending twist, which I won't say anything about, just because I think it's fun to explore, and it's a very thin book, and it's not very large, so it's fairly easy to get through. But the ending twist is sort of interesting, and the final decision that they make is one of the first decisions in media, in a novel, where I truly don't know what I would do. It is really that kind of thing where it's like, it's sort of a suffocating kind of choice that they have to make, and I think it's so interesting to think about it in the case of, like, do you do something that is selfish but necessary? Like, do you, like, selfishly return, or do you continue with adventure and be sort of selfish in that way? It's really interesting to try to figure out all that, and those questions are such fantastic questions to ask. Oh, I love it. Anyway, get this book. It is wonderful. It is wonderful. And then the last one, oi, as I knock you off kilter, the last one is Black Sun. Wow, this thing is huge. Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Now, Black Sun is high fantasy to an extreme. Rebecca Roanhorse approached this in terms of, like, writing a fantasy universe that is devoid of, like, European colonial lenses. This is essentially an entirely indigenous perspective on high fantasy, which I think is just really ingenious in its own right, and it is so expertly written that I don't think anybody could find any fault. I know I've heard online there are people who are like, well, that's not fantasy, and it's like, fuck off. Like, are you that Eurocentric that you cannot read a book that doesn't have, like, European colonizer influence? That's something that you need to unpack. But essentially, it follows the story of a couple different key characters. I would say the 2 key characters, or the 3 key characters, although, okay, let's see, is it in here? Because I forget how his name is spelled. It has been a long time since I read this. It has been a long time since I've read this. Okay, so Serapayo, he is sort of he is a main character, he's a perspective character, but in such a way that it's, I don't know, like, he feels like he is more an object in the story. He's an agent in the story for sure, but I wouldn't call him a main character, mostly because it's hard to connect with him. It's not, but I don't know, he is such a very well-written character that I could call him a protagonist and an antagonist at the same time, in a way, because he is the harbinger of doomsday for this world. Essentially, he holds within himself the power to bring about the end of the world and the end of the world order. Then there's Naranpa, who is the newly minted sun priest, a newly minted sun priest, and she is essentially like trying to navigate being basically a commoner in that role in a society that theoretically is okay with that, but not really. So trying to navigate that, and then also the fact that with the sort of pending shit show that is Serapayo, she must really quickly come to terms with the fact that she needs to become the avatar of the sun goddess, and that's like, again, a whole thing. And then there is Shiala, who is tasked with bringing Serapayo to the holy city of Tova, and it just follows all of this, like dealing with the aftermath of Serapayo and like shit popping off, dealing with Naranpa and the politics and the pettiness of the city of Tova. Meanwhile, they pose as like the moral sort of high ground, and then just dealing with Shiala being disgraced as a member of a very reclusive tribe of people. And just, it's such a good book, and it's hard to describe what happens in it because you could, again, I've seen the criticism that this book doesn't have plot. Untrue. This book just has, it is a huge swell, and you're constantly wondering what is going to happen with these characters, and everything makes sense. Again, there's a lot of criticism for this book that I chalk up to racism, because we don't, a lot of the time as a society, we don't give any merit to indigenous storytelling. It's all just oral history, and they don't write anything down, and it's like, fuck off. Like, this is such a good book. This is, I would say, a fantasy classic. The last book is coming out this year. The second book, I say, is my favorite. This book will always have a place in my heart because this book is the book that got me back into reading in earnest. I have told you guys, I have told all of you before that I try to read a book a month. I started this book in August of 2021. I finished it in December of that year, and ever since then, I have been reading 10 to 12 books a year because of this book. So, this is very, very good. This is very, very good. I would say that if you are looking for spoilers, Serapayo is the avatar of the Crow God. Essentially, he turns into the Crow God to bring about the end of the world. Naranpa is the avatar of the Sun Goddess, who is supposed to defend against that. But, of course, Tova wants to get rid of her. So she is essentially cast out before their greatest hour of need. And so you really come to hate the city of Tova and the politics and the institutions of it. And then Shiala is essentially left adrift. Like, I need to find, like, eventually she ends up forming an attachment with Serapayo, where a lot of people would think that rightfully he is a complete monster, which he does turn into, but he is a monster of somebody else's making, and it really feels like he is uncomfortable with that fact, but he kind of knows nothing else. And I think Shiala is a sort of possibly a panacea to that. So it's really good. I would like to see how it all sort of ends up. The second book is called Fevered Star, and it is very, very good. I recommend both of these books. But that is my sort of book summary slash little plot summary sort of video, just as a little extra for all of you. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Melanie. I hope that you enjoy. I hope that you get, if you get one of these books, and I understand money is tight, I'm not forcing you to, but if you do end up getting one of these books, The Spear Cuts Through Water because it's so small and so easy. And then Black Sun, but if you can get all three, more power to you. So